Good evening, everyone. This is Mellissa Thomas of Florida National News, coming to you with the evening news rundown for Monday, April 27th, 2020. Thanks as always for sticking around with us and tuning in. It's always a pleasure. As always, we'd like to start you off with the current numbers for COVID-19. So as of right now, according to the World Health Organization, we are looking at 2.8 million. So far, the cases are beginning to decrease in various countries. So the numbers are starting to level off some. But 2.8 million confirmed cases so far still, according to the World Health Organization, edging close to 194,000 confirmed deaths around the world. Here in the United States, we're looking at pretty much 900,000 confirmed cases with over 46,000 deaths. And in the state of Florida, according to the Florida Department of Health, we're looking here in the state of Florida at over 32,000 confirmed cases, and we're getting close to 1,100 deaths. Right now, we're a little bit under that, and things are beginning to slow down in various counties, throughout various counties in the state of Florida. Jumping over to a bit of world news, particularly where COVID-19 is concerned, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson finally officially returned to work today after his fight with COVID-19. He contracted it and was able to overcome it. He was in intensive care for a brief while there, but he is now back to work. And now, after having experienced COVID-19 for himself, he has decided that for his nation, lockdown will still be happening for a while. He's urging the population to continue to observe the lockdown in order to prevent a second wave of the virus. And for someone who has experienced it, he knows how devastating it can be. So he says he won't lift the lockdown until there's an increase in testing and a decrease in infections and deaths there in the UK. Jumping over to North Korea very quickly, you've likely heard over the weekend about different buzz and speculation about what is going on with the leader in North Korea, Kim Jeong-Hoon. He has been off the map for the last month. Now, the latest reports were saying that his train that he normally uses has been spotted at his compound within the last week. But the reports are, of course, making the disclaimer that the presence of the train doesn't necessarily mean that he's there, and the report didn't show any indication about his health. However, a dignitary here in the U.S. who's previously worked with North Korea said, hey, don't get too excited about this, because Kim Jong-un previously disappeared before. His father, Kim Jong-il, did the same thing, as well as the grandfather, the founder of North Korea. And folks began to speculate, world leaders began to speculate and send in reports to the US about their disappearances and wondering what was going on with them, only for them to reappear in public. And South Korea is simply sticking to the report that so far there is nothing unusual happening in North Korea. So just to kind of downplay that speculation, because that is a concern for the North Korean population should anything happen to Kim Jong-un. Now, jumping over to the national front here in the United States, we've got some good news going on, as we talked about previously, with different states beginning to gradually reopen and begin to ease their various lockdowns. You heard us talk about Georgia reopening over the weekend. You heard us talk a little bit about the state of Texas as well. So now the states of Tennessee, Montana, and Mississippi are joining in the reopening efforts to revive their economies. Now, here's what each state is doing. In Montana, bars, restaurants, and casinos will reopen on May 4th. As of right now in Mississippi, retail stores have reopened, and they're choosing to stay at 50% capacity in order to maintain social distancing and limit the amount of people that are in contact with each other as they do their shopping. In Tennessee, they're doing the same thing, but with restaurants. So restaurants are now open and available for folks to come and eat in, but they're keeping the capacity at 50%. A little bit more on the US front, especially with regards to COVID-19. UPS and CVS have actually partnered together to do drone deliveries of prescriptions for seniors here in the villages. So congrats to UPS and CVS for teaming up together. Their partnership actually started last year, and now we're now seeing the fruition of it. The deliveries will begin in May, and they aim to deliver to 135,000 residents. Now, in keeping with the Florida news that we're talking about, you may have remembered Amendment 4, very controversial amendment that would allow convicted felons to have their voting rights restored. Now, the saga continues with that. So here's the latest with that. currently. It is currently headed to federal trial in the form of a class action lawsuit. So, of course, originally Governor Ron DeSantis and Republican lawmakers made the stipulation that ex-felons can have their rights restored as long as they make sure to pay restitution and any other legal fees, that any legal financial obligations that they still have. However, the argument was, what about those who are convicted felons who can't afford to make those payments? So originally, that was the pushback. So a little bit of a timeline with regards to that. Back in October 2019, the situation had a preliminary injunction placed on it. The law had a preliminary injunction placed on certain parts of it, certain stipulations of it. In February of this year, there was a 3-judge panel on the 11th Circuit Court that decided to let the injunction stand. And in March, an Atlanta appellate court didn't bother to hear the appeal that was submitted, that was backed by Governor Ron DeSantis. So as of right now, it's headed to trial. This is being pushed by the ACLU as well as two other civil groups. Now, jumping over to business news very quickly for you. Now, obviously, with states reopening, there's a lot of optimism in the economy. So the Dow experienced a nice jump today. The Dow rallied 300 plus points after states began to reopen. And obviously over the weekend, Georgia, Oklahoma, South Carolina, those states, you just heard me mention Tennessee, Montana, Mississippi. And the stock market was, of course, happy because the states are reopening, the reissuing of PPP loans. So a lot of smaller businesses are being able to come back online. Some of the larger businesses, the publicly traded companies, they're able to take advantage of some of this funding with guidance from the IRS, of course, with regards to this. And it's not just here in the US either. International markets are rebounding as well, particularly in Asia. Markets in Japan, China, and Hong Kong are seeing increases in their markets as well. Now, jumping over to the entertainment side of things, you guys know we always love to touch on entertainment. If you are a Star Wars fan, your favorite holiday is coming up, May 4th. May the 4th be with you. In the announcement of May 4th, anticipation of May 4th, Disney is announcing that all Star Wars films, every movie in the series will be released on Disney Plus. Disney's Star Wars Rise of Skywalker, that film will be the last film to be installed on Disney Plus. They've chosen to move it up 2 months early in recognition of that holiday. So if you're a Star Wars nerd, enjoy on May 4th. And again, may the 4th be with you. One more bit of entertainment news for you. Andrew Yang, his Humanity First organization that he co-founded, they have actually started what's called an All Americans campaign, which is a celebrity campaign that is similar to what we saw the WHO do a couple weekends ago, with a lot of international stars teaming up and working together to raise funds. With that event, the funding went to the World Health Organization and Global Citizen. What Andrew Yang's organization event is doing is raising funds specifically for communities that are underserved. Very similar to the report that I shared with you last week with the Twitter CEO and Beyonce teaming up together. They paid out a total of $6 million to be able to give to communities that are underserved. So Andrew Yang's initiative will also aim at underserved communities, and the Twitter CEO is part of this initiative as well. So if you want to find out more about the initiative, just visit allamericans.us. That is the website to learn more about that. Now, jumping over to sports a little bit. Now, Governor Cuomo obviously has been one of the most visible voices in the COVID-19 fight, and in terms of leading his state in the response. So he's forecasting, according to the Associated Press, that summer could be the start of baseball there in his state. So he's envisioning that baseball could start again at Yankee Stadium or the Mets City Field, But obviously, they would still need to observe social distancing. So the number of attendees at the games will be drastically reduced. And of course, this presents a slight challenge, given that a lot of the stadiums typically rely on ticket revenue at the gates and concessions, Whereas with this, if he chooses to go ahead and do the games with a limited audience, the revenue would only come from broadcasting. So as we wrap up here, that does it for us at the Evening News Rundown. As always, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate you for tuning in every single day, and I will be back here at 5 p.m. tomorrow. As always, have a great rest of your day and do enjoy.